Good afternoon, you Friday degenerates who are tuning in to the Risers and Fallers exit interview series, our very last and final division. We have done it. NFC East, NFC West. I don't know why I said NFC East. I think I've just got jitters, Evan. I'm nervous. I'm afraid for this series we've done to end. I don't want to let go of 2025. I don't want to look forward to 2026. With all these terrible coaching hires and all these very, very bad assistant run game coordinators going to New York. The Super Bowl is a very bittersweet time for me. I know it's going to be for you as well.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, just the end of the football season is a scary thing. Last Sunday, I genuinely had no idea what to do with myself. I forgot what I do on Sundays without football. So after this upcoming Sunday, I don't exactly know what's going to happen.
It's going to be terrifying because there's no excuse. I can't say, I have 9 a.m. I have to watch this Brazil game or this Spain game. 1 p.m. Don't talk to me. 7 p.m. Don't talk to me. I mean, it might be good for the overall self-esteem, but I'm at the point in my life where I'm just not interested in any new hobbies. I don't want to fill the space. I'm satisfied with all my personal relationships. My work-life balance is strong. I'm in good shape. Right now, I could only be tainted or tempted by something, and I just don't think that's healthy.
What's tempting you recently?
Well, most recently, let's see here. That's a good question. I've been looking at like buildings and architecture and furniture, and I've been like, I bet I could do that with absolutely no previous experience. I just like the chair I'm sitting in right now. I was looking at it earlier, and I was like, I bet I could build that. And
Yeah,
that's
why
going to be
not?
about 2 to 3 years that nobody's going to enjoy, especially my family. All
Yeah,
right,
that's
now.
probably better to stay away.
Yeah, I think so. Well, it's either that or drugs and alcohol. So we all know where that'll go. Okay. NFC West. Talking about a bunch of teams that built something very well. This is a fun division. A lot of talented players, a lot of smart coaches, a lot of players used in very encouraging ideal. This is the ideal offseason team because you have all these takes all offseason. And this was really the one division that did the best job, I think, of putting it all together across the board. It was the only division with 3 teams in the top 10 in success rate. I don't think any team had even more than 1, maybe 2. So a lot of fun here. What are your entry thoughts as we talk about this team before we give you the top line stuff? You're wearing the Seahawks hat. Your team's playing in 2 days. What's your thoughts on this division?
Well, it's the best division in football. I don't think that's really up for debate. I guess you could argue the NFC North, the AFC West, but
Hmm.
I think it's the NFC West pretty clearly. And it's very obviously the best fantasy division in football as
Yes.
well, because even the Cardinals had plenty of fantasy success this year. So,
Hmm.
yeah, those are kind of my top level thoughts. Excited for the conversation.
Yeah, guys, you're going to see with all these teams, guys who were not even drafted were big contributors for a lot of these rosters. And we can just start with the top line stuff here. So this is another one where it all kind of makes sense. EPA per play. Seahawks, although they were the 1 seed, they were only 15th, which I thought was interesting. I thought it would have been a little higher. Rams at 2nd, 49ers at 8th. What else is new? And then Cardinals down at 21. EPA per pass shakes out pretty evenly as well. Seahawks at 8th, Rams at 2nd, 49ers at 6th, Cardinals at 17, and we all know who's driving that 17 ranking for them. EPA per rush, this is really where this division struggled mightily. Seahawks 29th in EPA per rush, Rams at 11th, 49ers at 22nd, which is kind of shocking. Cardinals at 26. So just tough rushing advanced metrics from this team, but really where they all shined were the success rate. We had Seahawks were number 1 in the NFL in success rate. How about that? Rams were 8th, or no, sorry, with that flipped. Rams were 1st, Seahawks 8th, 49ers were 3rd, Cardinals at 19th. Just a lot of pushing and pulling parts in the right direction.
Yeah, just pretty much good offenses across the board.
Mhm.
Um, well, like you mentioned, the Seahawks metrics I think are a little interesting, where the EPA per play is pretty mediocre for a
Mhm.
number 1 seed, but it didn't really matter because of the defense, of course,
Yeah.
and the success rate was more important to that offense. Just uh, the turnovers. That's kind of
Yeah.
the main reason the EPA per play is so low.
Yep.
And then the Rams offense, there's really no notes. It was just incredible. The best offense in
Mhm.
football, pretty easily, in my opinion.
Yep.
Um, the 49ers, they had their struggles on the ground, But despite all of the injuries that they faced this year, they were still a very good offense.
Mm,
Just made the best coaching job of Kyle Shanahan's career.
mm.
And the Cardinals' offense was just a fantasy machine, basically.
Yeah. Everybody brought a little something different to the division, which is very fun. Jamie's bringing a little something here, kicking ass, and Evan got the whole game in flames. We're trying, Jamie. We always appreciate you stopping by. So there is one team left representing the NFC. Let's talk about them. They certainly earned it. And I want to piggyback off of something that you said, really talking about how the Seahawks approached this season. And it was low volume, high value. That's kind of how I felt about what they went with. Sam Darnold, QB 27 off the board. This was a big one for me because I was surprised to see he was only QB 26. So I guess maybe some version of how he's played lately, how he played. He played big in big moments. And so maybe that skewed a little bit of how I thought about his overall performance. Cause I really was targeting him in a lot of super flex drafts because I thought it was going to be a nice year for him. I liked Kubiak coming in. I like the skill position players there. And it ended up, team success wise, it was definitely there. He had some nice deep balls as well. But let's see here. Where do I have in my notes for good old Sammy here? 6 top 10 finishes, but he was outside of the top 29 times. That feels about right.
Yeah, yeah. From a fantasy standpoint, it was a very, very up and down season
Mm,
for Darnold, and that's mostly just because of the pass rate. The Seahawks were the run heaviest team in the league,
yeah.
so it's going to be tough for the quarterback to put up points. There, he's going to need explosives, and he's going to need to manage the turnovers, which
Mm.
we know that latter part was a struggle throughout the entire season.
Yeah, and that was kind of, they had a lot of adults in this room here. And so anybody who was bullish on what this offense could be, they were equal parts rewarded and equal parts let down because you kind of see that however you viewed Sam Darnold's season, you kind of see that in all the other positions except for JSN. Kenneth Walker and Charbonnet for what feels like the 100th year in a row was the which side are you on, RB discussion of the offseason. And they were neck and neck in a lot of categories. Kenneth Walker was RB 17 off the board, finished as RB 29 in points per game. Charbonnet was RB 35 at the board, finished RB 30th in points per game. And it really was just kind of your turn, my turn. It was a first full season of health for Kenneth Walker, but it was a really cliche season nonetheless. 5 top 10 finishes, but also 5 outside the top 30, a lot of peaks, a lot of 8 to 10 point games. So just before we get to Charbonnet and how these two played together, how did you feel about Kenneth Walker's season?
Well, it was definitely a disappointing season from a fantasy standpoint, that's for sure.
Mhm.
From an actual football standpoint, I thought he was incredible,
Yep.
as he's been for most of his career, and also he
Mhm.
stayed healthy. He played 17 games.
Mhm.
So maybe managing that workload had something to do with it.
Sure.
But when we drafted Walker, we were expecting more of his 2024 usage, where he was roughly a 60 to 65% opportunity share guy. And
Mhm.
instead, it was basically split down the middle,
Yeah.
50-50. He saw less receiving work than he saw in 2024, although still quite a bit. But number one thing is that he only scored 5 touchdowns in 17 games,
Yeah.
while in 2024 he scored 8 touchdowns in 11 games.
Mhm.
So that was the main difference from this season to last season as far as the fantasy disappointment. And then,
Yeah.
the main reason for that lack of touchdowns is Zach Charbonnet just
Mhm.
dominating the goal line work. So
Dominated it.
yeah, it was just a tough situation where the Seahawks' whole fantasy offense kind of came down to just one player, JSN, because it was an
Yeah.
extremely run heavy offense. So that takes away Sam Darnold and the other pass catchers, but they also decided to split the run game 50-50. So that took away basically Walker and Charbonnet for our fantasy lineups.
It did. They chirped at all of these little small things that Kenneth Walker could point to at different stretches of his career and say he's doing this a little bit better, he's doing that a little bit better. He had 9 games with 1 or less catches. That was like I'm not asking he's not necessarily a great receiving threat, but he's shown that he can do more than that at times. Charbonnet, he tied for 4th in the NFL for attempts inside the 5-yard line. He had 16, which is more than double K9. Here's a question though. I liked the talent of Kenneth Walker and I thought the price was okay when I invested in him this year.
Mhm.
Didn't love Zach Charbonnet, although I don't think he's clearly some version of low end RB2 to RB3, depending on what the circumstances are. Were you happy if you drafted Zach Charbonnet this year, considering we got a full season of Kenneth Walker?
I don't think so. I can't
Yeah,
really imagine. So, just to be transparent, I don't think I drafted any Charbonnet this year,
sure.
because he was pretty much just a contingent value play,
Yeah.
where you were hoping for a Kenneth Walker injury,
Mhm.
but the price tag was a little too high for purely a contingent upside kind of guy.
Mhm.
So I didn't draft him. I can't imagine that people that did draft him were really starting him all that often, unless they were desperate in a bye week sort of situation
Yeah.
where you're just hoping to get a touchdown. But he was the kind of guy where every week I was ranking him around RB 25 to RB 30, which are
Mhm.
generally not the kind of guys that you want to put in your lineup every week. So I don't think
Yeah.
that either the Walker or Charbonnet drafters were very excited about how the season went.
Yeah.
Despite obviously Charbonnet paid off at his
Mm.
ADP, uh, with his like final finish,
Mhm.
but I just don't think you actually saw that in the lineup.
Which is funny because we really liked, some of the additions to the offensive line, the way that
Hmm.
gelled together. It was just really
Yep.
strange how this ended up shaking out. There's a couple other teams in this division that the opposite happened to. So if you're a Zach Charbonnet guy, you're going to look at the fantasy championships and you're going to say his week 16, week 17 is what I'm going to hold out for next year. And if you're a Kenneth Walker guy, you're going to hold on to that Charbonnet injury going into next year and just hope that, one of these guys at some point is going to be able to take the torch. As far as the wide receivers go, I mean, is this the least we have to talk about any group that we've done in this entire series?
I wouldn't go quite that far. I mean, let's see. We did have the Patriots or
Mhm.
the Giants. That wasn't a fun one.
Sure.
And obviously the number one contender in that category is the Tennessee
Yeah.
Titans.
Of course. Yes. They're just trying to
Uh,
figure out how much juice we can squeeze out of what we have here. I mean, JSN, probably one of the best picks, if not the best pick at the wide receiver position this year.
mhm.
ADP of wide receiver 14, finished as finished as wide receiver 1, basically the name of the year. Are we going to acknowledge the new nickname?
No.
All right, moving right
I don't
on past
want
that.
to.
Just the ideal fantasy asset here, right? Tier 1 talent with usage, no competition. Anyone else lined up on the field is basically a low target, high value guy like Shaheed. A lot of 13 personnel, just dream stuff going forward.
Yeah, my note here was that somehow he managed to put up 21 points per game in an extremely run-heavy offense, the run-heaviest
Mhm.
offense in the league, which is just incredibly impressive. All of the share metrics, like target share, air yard share, that kind of stuff,
Yeah.
are like historic levels
Mhm.
for JSN this season, which speaks to his talent, and all of like the per route efficiency metrics were also just elite, like
Yeah.
damn near historic level kind of stuff. So I really have no notes other than he is just freaking awesome.
He really was. That's going to be, people 5, 6, 10 years from now would just really like to look at, nobody likes to look at EPA or yards per route run for individual seasons. They like to just look at the chunk counting stats. But I'm glad you mentioned, this was one of the greatest wide receiver seasons we've ever seen from advanced metric standpoint.
Absolutely. Yeah. I saw some people, yesterday when he won Offensive Player of the Year, like this is one of the weakest Offensive Player of the Year seasons
What a
ever.
joke.
And
Is that Dan
I don't know about
Orlovsky?
that.
Yeah.
I don't know.
So let's cover not a lot of interesting tight end talk, but let's cover all the fast draft ADPs for all these guys because it's nice. The overall player pool is up on what the Seahawks were able to give. Sam Darnold, QB 19, Kenneth Walker, RB 12. So there's definitely some people are bullish. Charbonnet pays the injury price at RB 61. JSN gets awarded with wide receiver 2, just behind Jamar Chase. Cooper Kupp, I think people are they think they're out. Wide receiver 89. And then AJ Barner is an interesting one. AJ Barner was drafted this year as the tight end 55. He finished as the tight end 21 in points per game. Fast draft ADP of tight end 28. Is it some combination of his playmaking and his blocking that's going to keep Elijah Arroyo at bay?
I think he's just better than Elijah Arroyo right now.
Yeah.
We need to see development from Elijah Arroyo because
Mhm.
I just didn't think he was overly impressive at
Yeah.
really anything this year. I guess as a downfield playmaker, he definitely has some upside,
Mhm.
but we haven't really seen that yet. While AJ Barner is one of the best blocking tight ends in the league
Yep.
and a great red zone threat as well,
Mm.
and he's flashing some upside in other areas as well. So
Yep.
I'm all in on AJ Barner going forward
Mm.
as an upside tight end play, tight end 28. That's a great price tag.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, I guess I quickly wanted to touch on Charbonnet. You mentioned around RB 60 in fast draft ADP.
Yeah.
It's really brutal timing on this injury.
Yeah.
He's unfortunately going to miss most of, if not all of next season.
Mhm.
And then he'll be hitting free agency right after that. So
Sure.
I don't think we're ever going to see Charbonnet getting like his full time role that, people thought he might get with
Mm.
Walker potentially leaving this offseason. That's probably not happening.
Yeah.
So yeah, just really brutal timing for that Charbonnet injury.
It is. It's going to be, this is going to be a top heavy team next year. And you know what? If for a team that has a chance to lift the Lombardi, it's a winning formula. So hopefully they can
Mhm.
keep that up. Hopefully Charbonnet does come back and is able to give something at some point. So let's move on to the Rams here, which is another, I don't want to say boring team to talk about because they're certainly one of the greatest fantasy teams we've had in the last, forget last few years, in the last 10 to 15 years, just with what they've been able to do across the board here. So we can start with their ADPs. Stafford QB 23 at ADP. That back situation scared off a lot of people. Ended up being a big nothing burger. Kyron Williams, ADP of running back 13. Blake Corum, who a lot of people thought really was going to end up being replaced by Jarquez Hunter. I know I did an episode with Matt in the offseason about who's going to be the next Bucky Irving. And we were talking about Hunter well before we were talking about Corum. Puka Nacua, wide receiver 6. Devontae Adams, wide receiver 17. Everybody returned on investment. There was not one bad pick to make amongst this group.
Yeah, yeah, that's pretty much the reason why this offense isn't all that exciting to talk about is because it was
Mm.
just awesome and everybody was awesome
Mm.
and everybody paid off their ADP.
Mm.
Obviously, the best value was probably Matthew Stafford.
Yep.
Got him past quarterback 20, finished quarterback 4 in points per game,
Mm.
7.7% touchdown rate. That's unlikely to maintain going forward, but I mean that is a very deserving MVP season. It was like 4,600 yards and 46 touchdowns or something like
Mm.
that. That's incredible.
Yeah, he really was the player that anybody who respected his game was without injury concerns. You had absolutely nothing to worry about
Yep.
from a performance standpoint. And Devontae Adams really fit in like a glove.
Mhm.
Let's see here. We had Matthew Stafford, the injury. Here's what I love. And this was the Drake May MVP fans really brought this to the forefront. Matthew Stafford attempted 66 passes from inside the red zone, 18 more than Jared Goff. He had 34 passes from inside the 10-yard line, which was 15 more than the second guy. And a lot of those went to Devontae Adams, who led the league with 14 touchdowns by a nice margin. And that was despite missing 3 games. It's really hard to have a note about Puka Nacua, who, the most yards per game of any player ever to start their career. Technically had more yards per game this year than JSN, but he did miss a game, so that dropped that down. So my question to you is, before we get a little bit deeper into this team, is this just a copy-paste offense for 2026?
Yeah, I think so.
Mm.
I guess you have to worry a little bit about the age
Mm.
concerns with Stafford and Devontae, but now that we know
Yep.
Stafford's coming back and Devontae's coming back, I
Mm.
don't really have any big concerns.
Yep.
The Devontae addition really was just absolutely massive for
Butter.
not only the Rams offense,
Mm.
but Stafford in fantasy. Because the last few years, Stafford has been very disappointing in fantasy, mostly because
Yep.
he wasn't throwing any passing touchdowns. Over the last 3 years, he had 10 touchdowns, 24
Mm.
touchdowns, and 20 touchdowns, and then this year, 46. And I
Mm.
think that's almost entirely driven by the Devontae Adams addition because
Mhm.
he's just a cheat code on the goal line still.
Yeah.
So that is kind of the reason that I think Stafford and Devontae paid off the ADP is just that connection in the red zone.
Yeah. Yeah, there was, Stafford has long been, I feel like every show I talk about this. if you like to wait on quarterback and superflex, he's been a big Scott Fishbowl drafter for me over the years, just because this is what he's capable of doing. And, 1 out of 4 years, you get one of these, you feel pretty good, feel vindicated.
Yep.
I do feel obligated to mention Colby Parkinson here, who was not even really drafted by anybody. Tight end 77, technically off the board. Finished as tight end 25 in points per game, but this is a player who finished 5th in the NFL in receiving touchdowns. A lot of people probably tabbed Terrace Ferguson as a breakout candidate, or there was some Tyler Higbee mixed in there as well. This is a team, between them and the Seahawks, they really were driving the 13 personnel conversation this year to a lot of success. Obviously, they were neck and neck for the 1 seed for large portions of the season. So how do you envision that position or how will you approach the tight end position on this team for the offseason?
Yeah, it's really hard to say. I don't think that because they run so many different tight ends in like legitimate roles, I don't think that any of them are going to be like awesome picks at ADP. But I wouldn't be surprised if Parkinson and Ferguson like beat their ADP going into this year. I think that Parkinson is honestly like a really good tight end that doesn't get the credit he deserves. Very good blocker, very good receiver.
Yep.
And Ferguson has big time upside going into the future. But the way that this offense shakes out with Puka and Devontae, it's going to be hard for any one tight end to get into the top 15 even at the tight end position.
And that's kind of been the Sean McVay offense, even going back to, the early days when he was rotating. Who is the really athletic tight end that I'm thinking of right now that he would rotate? He came and played for the Seahawks for a year or two. Tyler Higbee. And then where's the chat when we need it? Who at once or twice a game, he would make just an unbelievably athletic Gerald Everett. Once or twice a game, he would make.
God. Don't get me started on Gerald fucking Everett.
Come on.
One of the worst Seahawks of my lifetime.
He scored a touchdown his first game as a Seahawk, didn't he? And I remember thinking, this is the pick of the year.
And then I believe we were playing the Commanders, and he single-handedly lost us the game with 3 turnovers, all from Gerald Everett. A tight end with 3 turnovers.
Wow. We might need to get that one clipped up and added to the channel, because I would love to see that game. I would love to see. Yeah. But that's, that is what the Sean McVay tight end tree does to us. It infiltrates the rest of our lives and lowers our self-esteem to points that we didn't even think were possible.
Yep. Yeah. We should probably touch on the running game a little bit more as well.
Sure. Definitely worth noting.
Kyren did pay off his ADP with like positional rank, but it was also a down season for him in terms of like points per game. And the metrics were mediocre, as they usually are. The big note was that his opportunity share dropped from 83% to 65% this year. Yeah. Blake Corum really became a factor this year, and he was very efficient as well. Second in explosive rating among qualified running backs this year. Although his fantasy production was very limited because he is a complete non-factor in the passing game. Kyren isn't a huge factor there either, but at least he gets 6 to 8% target share, while Corum is at like literally 1%.
Yeah, this season for the running backs really came down to how well the offense was able to get into the red zone based upon who was on the field. I mean, Corum looked like a starting running back. It just so happened to be oftentimes that they would do entire drives with one running back or the other. There really was no packages. There was no formations. And, it just happened to be that Kyren ended up dominating a lot of the touchdown share. But I agree with you. It was not an encouraging sign for Kyren Williams dynasty owners. And there was a lot of people who look at this game just through pure talent alone already had that sentiment going into the year, regardless of who the RB2 was on this team. Kyren's, his lack of explosives and just kind of, he's a good running back for what's in front of him, but he's really not going to elevate an offense. I don't think he's not going to make up for gaps in the offensive line. It's not somebody that I would want if he was playing on Arizona, let's say.
Sure. Yeah. That's a good way to put it. He will do just enough. He'll be solid for you. But I think it was telling that in the last 2 drafts, they spent day 2 picks on the running back position. Clearly, they felt some type of way. Yeah. So I don't know. Going forward, it'll be tough to see, just to figure out where to draft Kyren going into next year.
Yeah, then this is a team that really does like to be a part of the offseason conversation. So we'll definitely get some insight on that. We will take a quick break here. And when we come back, we will get to the San Francisco 49ers, who are a post break team on risers and fallers. That's very rare for them. They are lumped in with underdog of the year, Arizona Cardinals. We'll see you guys in just a second.
Oh, big news. Fast Draft has 2 best ball tournaments live right now. The Origins All Rookie Game for 2026. That's right. 2026 Best Ball is upon us. All rookies with Origins. $10,000 prize pool. And then we have our playoff Super Slam. You just pick 6 guys for the entire NFL playoffs and you let it ride. That one also has a $10,000 prize pool. Yes, things are happening at Fast Draft. The code is FAST to get a $50 deposit match. Let's go.
Let's do go. And I do want to shout out the Player Profiler all-in package as we all get ready for this off season. We want to make sure we're continuing. Matt always tells everybody if they've made it to Player Profiler, they've made it to the top tier of fantasy football analysis. Evan, where are we currently right now in our off-season plans?
We're all over the place. A lot of rookie stuff this time of year. We just added rookies to the Dynasty rankings. The top, I think 44 are in there right now, and that'll only increase as I continue to dive deeper into this class. Besides that, the Dynasty Dominator is live. We'll have rookies added to there very soon. And we're always working on seasonal rankings as well, which will be coming in the next few weeks.
That is what I'm talking about. And we also want to shout out guys like Jamie for their 7th straight year subscribing to the platform. Now, that's why we continue to pump out entertainment for you the Friday before the Super Bowl and plenty of weeks to come. Now, Evan, it's very rare that in a fantasy football show, the 49ers will be the 3rd team we talk about on a segment, considering you mentioned earlier in this episode that Shanahan might have done his best coaching job that he has done. And I think I'm inclined to agree with you on that one. This is a team that was vying for the 1 seed going into week 18 and did not even make it to the championship game. That streak is broken. A lot of chatter about EMF and 5G and substations. But I do really, for this segment, would like to focus on just purely the team itself, because there's some high highs and there's some low lows. Where do we begin with this 49ers offense?
I would love to just point and laugh for a minute because I just hate the 49ers.
Ooh,
and the fact that the Seahawks just ended their season in embarrassing fashion. Oh my God. It was really one of the highlights of my life was watching that blowout in the divisional round. After all week, the 49ers thought they were going to win that. So really I just want to point and laugh for a little bit.
Yeah, it really was the only game that somebody got the belt, and they got it on prime time.
Yeah. And just a week before that, or 2 weeks before that, the 49ers thought they were going to get the 1 seed. Yeah, just incredible stuff.
It doesn't get much better than that. It really doesn't. And that's kind of payback for you guys. I remember during the Russell Wilson era, there was that, what was it, the touchdown at the goal line that didn't get called for the 1 seed or something like that. You guys have a storied history of it coming down to the wire.
Yeah. It is a storied rivalry. Back in the Legion of Boom days, we absolutely dominated them. I think we beat them 10 times in a row or something. But then they had our number a bit in the Geno era. But it seems like we've turned that around and we're the big brother again.
Does feel good. We need to have that kind of that up and down. It's good for content. It's good for flow. It's good for fantasy. And this was a team that was once again overall very good for fantasy football. Brock Purdy in particular had a standout year. He was drafted as the QB 10. I knew he had a good year, and I knew he was the Planet Fantasy Playoff superstar. QB 2 in points per game for Brock Purdy, who didn't have Brandon Ayuk. They trade Deebo Samuel. Jawan Jennings is in and out of the lineup. Ricky Pearsall is in and out of the lineup. Christian McCaffrey he's kind of a rushing shell of himself. Dominant year for Brock Purdy of the games he did play, because he did miss over half the season.
Yeah, no, he was awesome when he played. I will say that pretty much all of that production came against the worst teams in the league. He does all of his 20 plus point per game games this year were against the Tennessee Titans, the Phillip Rivers Colts, and then the
Mhm.
Bears defense when they were at their worst.
Yeah.
And besides that, he didn't put up 20 points per game once. So
S-
yes, it was a very good season, but I don't know. I thought the entire time leading into that Week 18 Seahawks game
Mm.
that this offense was just getting way too much smoke blown up its ass
Yeah.
because they were playing one of the worst schedules in the league, which is why all of the fantasy analysts were so in on the 49ers this season, including myself. It didn't really totally pan out just because everybody got injured,
Mhm.
but the offense was still awesome, and I do think Purdy is very good as well.
Do you know who looks really good after that very beautiful monologue that you just went on? Mac Jones, who had to
Yeah.
eat the third. This is the team that did have the third toughest schedule, but it would appear that Mac Jones played about 80% of their tough games. And his per game metrics were really good. So I don't know what that says about anybody here. It's great for Shanahan. It's great for Purdy. It's great for Mac Jones. Would love to see Mac get a little bit of love here, but not too much we can say about him. As much as we can, Brock Purdy, didn't have a game beneath QB 20, 90 points in the fantasy football playoffs. We haven't talked about this too much because it's more of an exit series than it is, looking ahead. But how do you look at Brock Purdy at 26 years old, just signed that contract? How do you look at him as a value, as a dynasty asset? Do you think he's undervalued?
I would have to look at some consensus rankings. I'm not exactly sure where they have him, but yeah, I think he's a very good quarterback to have in Dynasty.
Yep.
I would be a little bit worried with him as my quarterback one, just because of the injury history. It's really sketchy. He just misses a lot of time pretty much every year. But
Yeah.
when he plays, he is pretty awesome. And I always hate facing him as a Seahawks fan. I'm never confident going into those games because he just runs around and figures it out like a little shit and makes these crazy plays. And yeah, it's
He
very
does.
frustrating.
He has figured it out. He's figured out how to be the Jimmy Garoppolo level of I will fully commit to the execution of his offense while also making plays out of structure. Right now on Player Profiler, we have him at QB 11, sandwiched in between Jackson Dart and Trevor Lawrence. He's also ahead of Bo Nix, and he's ahead of Dak Prescott. So that's kind of that first tier out of the top 10. Once you get past the super elite rushers and the crazy passers, your Caleb's and your Herberts and your Jalen Hurts. And then he's just sitting a couple points behind Patrick Mahomes as well.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a very tight tier of quarterbacks in Dynasty. You could tell me that you want Lawrence ahead of him. I think that's totally fair. And we're going to evaluate that throughout the offseason. And it was really impressive what he did this year because of the lack of weapons around him. Jawan Jennings was mediocre at best. Ricky Pearsall barely played. He was good when he played, but he barely played. It was really just Purdy when he was in with CMC and Kittle. And, those two guys are still awesome, but they're also getting very old.
Yeah, getting old indeed. And that's a fantastic transition to getting very old, because I have one line underlined in this entire note section that I have on this division. For CMC, I have RB1, but at what cost? And I have an analogy for this one. This CMC season and how I viewed his performance as a runner, still an elite receiving back.
Yep.
But it was like shitting your pants and running it in the laundry, and the washer went off, the laundry's done, but you're afraid to open it and look and see because you're afraid that there's skid marks still going to be on there. That's my concern with Christian McCaffrey going forward. He was 6th in the entire league in reception this year, and that's where like the focal point of his performance came from. I'm seeing signs of early onset Austin Eckler with Christian McCaffrey. Is this a ledge I can be talked off of?
No, I think you're pretty much dead on. I would say he's a little bit better than Austin Eckler, but it's definitely the right archetype. And I think that's what they should do, is turn him into pretty much a receiver only going forward, because running the ball, he is not impressive at all this season. I thought he was quite poor, to be honest, running the football. That's kind of what I expect them to do going into next offseason. I think they're going to commit more to giving him more help, especially in the running game. We'll see if he can stay healthy after a 400 touch season. That's traditionally something that's very tough to do, and especially given his injury history.
Yes, extremely tough to do, and he'll be an interesting. He's the kind of player that sets your strategy when you're going to take him in probably the first round of best ball drafts, fast draft,
Sure.
redraft, anything this year. Because he had a low ADP this year in comparison to what he ended up doing. RB4, he was really going at the end of first rounds in this draft. And if you were in the right in the right lobby, you might have been able to get him at the beginning of the second round, just depending on what he's
Sure.
done to certain managers and when he's done it to them. So RB4 finishes as RB1. He's going as the RB4 in fast draft. So people are ready. People are looking at it like, let's see it happen again. He has the high ceiling game, high floor game to game. Brian Robinson came in occasionally. Brian Robinson, I don't think he's a very good running back, but he moved differently when he was on the field in comparison to watching CMC.
Yeah, I felt like every time Robinson touched the ball, it was 10-yard carry every time.
Yep.
Going into next year, I think I'll probably be out on CMC. I was pretty in on him this year. I think I'll probably be out next year because I'll be expecting less workload on the ground for sure. And he's another year older, and then the whole 400 touch thing as far as injuries. I guess we should touch on the receivers. I don't think Juwan Jennings is particularly interesting to talk about. He's fine. He was playing through 5 broken ribs, so maybe that's why he was mediocre this year. And then Ricky Pearsall, very good on a per route basis, but can't stay healthy. So
no,
there's really nothing more to say than that.
Yeah, this is, if there was ever a time to actually slide in the electrical station joke, it would be right with this receiving core in particular. Jennings, I actually am down on Jennings. I feel like he'll probably be a retention pick for them because of all their injuries and the uncertainty with just a lot of the drama that's happening there. But he's a player that I thought was going to have much better stats than when I actually went and looked at how his season went. He was basically a non-factor when Kittle and Pearsall were on the field together. Low end wide receiver 2, oftentimes a wide receiver 3. And then Ricky Pearsall, in September, he trailed only Puka and JSN in yards. He was having a nice start to the year. PCL really derailed most of it. He bounced back nicely, which if you're going into this offseason trying to get a beat on what this team's going to be, he had really nice receiving stat lines in week 15 and 17. So there's some optimism to be had there. And he probably won't be getting a better time to shine if he can stay healthy with Kittle recovering and his advanced age. They've said Brandon Ayuk will never play for this team again. And, they might let Jennings walk. Who knows what ends up happening there. So I'll say that to say this. Is there a world where a healthy Ricky Pearsall can finish as the wide receiver 12 next year?
Absolutely. 100%. That's definitely in the range of outcomes. That September should give us plenty of hope going forward.
Yeah.
I do think that they should re-sign Juwan Jennings just for the sole reason of he's a hoe and he belongs in San Francisco as a result.
Evan, you've been lighting up this whole episode with the failures, the failures that these teams have come up so short and so publicly short. Just an absolute blow. We might just have to make this a recurring segment for a lot of our shows.
I would love to. I would love to. I guess we should talk about Kittle. He had a really good year too. Tight end 3 in points per game, 14.7 points per game. Elite metrics across the board as well. He's still got it. Unfortunately, he did tear his Achilles. Hopefully he can return next year. I think there's some reports that it actually might not be that bad. He might be able to come back like mid-season or even earlier than that. I'm hoping for that because he is an awesome player. He
really was a rock this year. Drafted as the tight end 3, finished as the tight end 2 in points per game. This was just a stand up and take a bow year from him. He was incredible across the board. So it's really nice to see his game age well. If there's a player in the league that I feel really, sure, he's been an injury riddled guy throughout his career, but as far as like coming back, and if he can come back giving you 95% of what he's given you, I feel really good about him. And if you're looking at that in fast draft, he's going as the tight end 15 right now. So he's in between. We don't think he's going to play or play well versus when he comes back, I know he's going to be good. That could end up being a pretty nice value.
Yeah, I like that a lot, especially if you pair him with more of like a meat and potatoes kind of tight end that can hold you over. I think that's a great way to play it there. My last big picture note on the 49ers is that the talent across this roster is almost exclusively old and injured. And it could be a real problem going forward. You have Fred Warner. Their best players are
Yeah.
Fred Warner, Nick Bosa, Trent Williams, George Kittle, Christian McCaffrey. All those guys are old and injured frequently. So I'm worried going forward. I am.
I feel like every episode I say this about one team, but is this the Keenan Allen team? I'm trying to figure out, like, it's just so perfect. I mean, because they're traditionally not a free agent splash team. That's just, they traded for McCaffrey, but otherwise they've played it pretty close to the vest. And, the second highest market value player is a guy that's already on their team, Jawan Jennings. The Spot Track, it projects him to get the second biggest wide receiver contract of any player outside of George Pickens. So it'll be really interesting to see how they kind of approach team building, because you can really say that this year was a monumental failure with how bad they got beat. I mean, they got smoked, and I think the Kittle thing sucks, but they were close to who they wanted to be across the board.
Yeah, I don't know how much of a disappointment you can really call this season, just because of how many brutal injuries they did
Sure.
face. I mean, three of their top 4 players basically, and Warner, Bosa, and Kittle were out
for
the stretch run.
Yeah.
But yeah, got to be very worried going into the future for sure. Here's what I think they should do this offseason. I think that they should spend a 3rd-round pick on a kicker. I think that'll solve all their problems.
That is, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers spent a 2nd-round draft pick on a kicker, and a few years later they won the Super Bowl. So it's possible that things like this end up shaking out. All right, now that's an old team with a lot of injury history. Let's go to a young team with a lot of PTSD is what I think about when I think about this team and what they're trying to be here. The Arizona Cardinals, who are... I look at all my notes here and I'm like, is any of this even going to be relevant going forward? Because they have a whole new staff coming in. Almost all the players that played might be in different roles the biggest positions, from head coach to play caller to quarterback to wide receiver to running back, they could be going through an entire transition. And it's a hard team to even know where to begin. So let's just shout out the big dogs, Jacoby Brissett and Michael Wilson, core memories for life. Obviously, we can get into statistics and celebrate their season, but I just want to make sure before we get into this kind of depressing team, now that I'm looking at it, that they eat their cake.
Yeah, I think you make a good point when you say that it's tough to figure out what this actually means going forward, because there's going to be so much that's different. I will say that I don't think the difference between Petzing and LaFleur is a massive one. I think they will run some of the same kind of things. It'll really depend on who's their quarterback. It's just really up in the air. They do have Jacoby Brissett still under contract, but it's not like he did a great job from a real football standpoint last year. But he did do exactly what all of us fantasy managers were hoping for. So I love Jacoby Brissett. I love Jameis Winston. I love Joe Flacco. All these kind of guys.
He really was. He really channeled that 2016 Blake Bortles, just the ability of Jacoby Brissett to get down by 21 before the second quarter even started and still finish with maybe just 1 interception and 25 fantasy points. I mean, and you know what's funny about this is I would have had him, I don't know if I'm telling on myself or not, but I would have had him at the bottom tier for quarterbacks that I actually thought were capable of doing that game to game. But then I went back and looked at his last 4 or 5 years, and he had random stretches with the Dolphins, with the Browns, where he was rip off 8 games with not the same level of consistency game to game that he had in Arizona, but he showed glimpses of just like, I'm going to air this bad boy out. And then you give him these weapons, which will be the best that he will have ever played with. And he's kind of able finally to put it all together. And I will never forget where I was for this stretch run that he had, despite the fact that they didn't win a single game.
Yeah, that's the really funny part about this is, and I'm trying to kind of figure out, what does this say about Kyler? Because they didn't win any games, but also the offense was way better.
Way better.
So it's, I don't know. I think that it's clear Kyler is bad for his fantasy weapons around him. Like, we can definitely say that.
Yeah.
As far as, is he better than Jacoby Brissett in a vacuum? I also don't have that answer.
Yeah,
which is
that's a tough
kind of
one to
crazy.
parse. And Jacoby Brissett's 33. Is there another team for him? Does this new regime want to kind of do some version of what Jonathan Gannon just did, only without the pressure, right? Like, as opposed to this year where they kind of had, I thought, some version, every report was different about Kyler, right? Was he actually as injured as he was? Did the team just not want to play him? Did they think Jacoby gave them a better chance at evaluating their weapons? It turned out it didn't matter because everybody got fired. But Kyler is probably the least memorable season I can remember from a top 10 ADP quarterback, even before the injury. 5 games with not a single bet finished better than QB 16. Turnovers, big dip in rushing touchdowns. He will be. I can't imagine there's a player that's in more trade rumors than he is this offseason.
Yeah, for sure. There's no way he returns to the Cardinals, I don't think. And we talked last episode about the Jets and the Dolphins who are trying to find their quarterbacks. The Cardinals are in that same boat where they are looking at guys like Malik Willis, Marcus Mariota, Tyrod Taylor, Mitch Trubisky, maybe Trinidad Chambliss or Zach Wilson. These are their best options. So Jacoby Brissett is going to be very much in play for them. I don't know if he's going to be their quarterback 2 or their quarterback 1 going into the season, but I would kind of expect at this point that Jacoby Brissett gets a decent number of starts, even if it's not getting the week 1 start.
That feels right on the money. You look at their free agent list, it's really not a lot of big impact guys. Not that this is a team that's, loaded with the guys they can afford to lose anyways. Calais Campbell's pushing 40, Jonah Williams, a lot of it's on defense, Jalen Thompson, LJ Collier. So, but there's not a lot of other security because really the hype that everybody was chasing this year, and you can't even call it hype. I'm trying to think of a word it would be, the rabbit maybe. This team could not run the ball. James Conner, let's just give him a pause too and say, take a bow for this 4-year run that he just went on. 4 straight years of being top 15 in points per game, despite being on the Cardinals with Kyler Murray. Turns 31 this year. Might get, does a year of, taking a year off, give him some fresh legs? I don't know. But Trey Benson, we didn't get many answers for either. He was hyped as kind of the lightning to James Conner's thunder, but he hardly handled any of the rushing. He was basically Rashad White. And so, we didn't get to see what this offense would look like post James Conner. So they turn the keys over to him in 2026. It's just a really strange room that I feel I can't even find any ounce of optimism for.
Yeah, my main note on this running game is that I just don't really know what to say about it. I don't know if they sucked because of systemic issues with the offensive line or the coaching, or if it's just because all of their running backs got hurt. James Conner only played 3 games. Then we got 1 game of Trey Benson, and he looked like potentially a fantasy league winner, and then he got hurt immediately. And then the rest of the year was some combination of Bam Knight, Michael Carter, and Amari DiMercado. That is really, really, really gross.
Yeah.
And at points those guys are startable in fantasy, but that doesn't mean that they are anything in NFL terms. They are quite bad. So yeah, for me, it's really tough to say. I still like James Conner. I still kind of like Trey Benson, although I think he is quite overvalued in Dynasty at the moment. I don't know. It'd be interesting to see if they bring back James Conner, but also does it really matter? I don't know.
Yeah, this is a team to where even if they brought all these guys back, they bring back Jacoby, they bring back James Conner, obviously they still have Trey Benson. Then you mix in the wide receivers, and I just don't. It felt like last year was such a lightning in a bottle from a fantasy perspective. I just can't imagine that a new coaching staff has come in and is like, what was their record? Yeah, let's run that back. I don't think it was a run game that they were missing. This is a team that was scoring points. They just didn't have that. This wasn't an adult team. Like Marvin Harrison Jr. My first note for him is damn. And that's it. That's the only thing I have. I can't remember a season where fantasy managers were begging for a player drafted so highly to not come back. He was a boom bust player. He boomed with target volume. He was very touchdown dependent. What's the research on a bounce back year post appendectomy? Do we know? Do we have that information available?
I don't have a study on that, but I did think that in terms of a metrics perspective, he was fine. Kind of just about as good as Michael Wilson, maybe slightly worse. But it was just kind of a weird situation where Jacoby seemed to prefer throwing to Michael Wilson. And obviously Marv missed time as well. I do think that it's interesting how Marvin Harrison Jr. is one of the worst receivers in the league in terms of yards after the catch. That's something that I would that's concerning to me. But I'm also not panicking. I still think that there is a clear upside case for him going forward.
Sure.
And I will say that the Michael Wilson going to next year, there's a little shade of Jerry Jeudy from this year, where he was very dependent on a super high volume of routes paired with Jacoby Brissett, which Jeudy was paired with Jameis Winston. There are some similarities there.
That's
where
really
maybe
interesting.
we shouldn't be so excited about Michael Wilson going into next year.
You know what? That is, somebody might call that a wet blanket, but I think that's a cold shower. I like that. That's a very real take, because even if you're watching it in even if you're watching it in real time, you're going, is this really happening? And I don't think that's necessarily a formula for success going forward. The Cardinals do this about every few years. They kind of have a guy that has a stretch like this. Michael Floyd, David Johnson, Michael Wilson. Derek Stingley gave up one touchdown in one-on-one coverage all season, and it was to Michael Wilson. And from weeks 11 on, second in targets, second in yards, fourth in 20-yard receptions, first in touchdowns, second in points per game. He's my man of the year. It's an award I will be giving out going forward. He was my man of the year for 2025. Now, here's where it gets interesting, though. Their fast draft ADP is potentially Smashville. Marvin Harrison Jr., he's going to pay the price. So if you liked his metrics, but you didn't like his season and his usage, new staff coming in, he's wide receiver 38 on fast draft right now. Michael Wilson, if you said, I think he's a talented guy that just needed a good quarterback, he's going as wide receiver 32 right now. So you could really like both of those guys. What will end up determining how those guys play out is the tight end one off the board for sure.
Yeah, I think more than that, though, it'll be the quarterback.
Sure, that's fair. Yeah.
Yeah, we'll see who's under center. Depending on who it is, Wilson and Marv could potentially be great values at ADP, great picks at least. We'll see how it pays off.
Yeah.
But I'm definitely interested at those ADPs. And yeah, we probably should get to the main event of this offense. He's
the man. What is this? This is like as little of a note as I could have for somebody that I don't want to stop talking about. He really was that perfect. I don't want to pay up for Brock Bowers, but I want an elite tight end. And you got everything. And he is going to be the poster boy forever now of get this guy a quarterback that can throw the ball and let him cook. And this guy he deserves a 3-star Michelin award right now for how much he cooked this year. He was unbelievable. Trey McBride, ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah, he was incredible. 18.6 points per game. That is a true prime Travis Kelce kind of season. We don't see those very often. So it's really cool to get one. Elite metrics, elite passing volume. This is what happens when you get those two factors combining together. I will say that because of just how everything kind of broke his way this year, he is more likely to disappoint next year than not. I guess I am being a bit of a wet blanket here again, but he's more likely to disappoint. I'm sorry.
That is not his fault. All of the best tight ends,
awesome.
All the greatest tight ends of the last 10 to 15 years, nobody has hardly been worth that tight end one ranking. Even, Kelce might have had a year in there, but for the most part, the tight end one drafted, something always happens to where they just don't quite meet that late first round, early second round capital that they end up, going for. And that's what's happening with McBride right now. His ADP in fast draft is 12.56. And if you really want him, you're going to be taking him with a 10th pick. You're going to be taking him with the 11th pick, because you're not, in my mind, you're not going to be finding much of a difference between Amon-Ra St. Brown at 10 and Drake London at 13. And I'm just throwing those names out there. But if you want a tight end, you're going to pay up for Trey McBride.
Yeah. No, for sure. It's an interesting argument to have of whether you should take him at that ADP. You could justify it, I guess. I will say that was Trey McBride actually a good pick this year, or did he just did everything break his way? Because with Kyler in the lineup, he was quite bad, or not bad.
Yeah.
He wasn't having the smash season
Sure.
that he would have with Jacoby Brissett. So I don't know. I kind of think in theory he actually wasn't an awesome pick. It just kind of happened that everything broke his way.
I just dare you to tweet that out after we're done with the show. That Trey
McBride
McBride
actually was a
really
bad
not
pick.
that good of a pick. Yeah, I mean, when
It's
you
a
look at
take.
those first 5 games, it's pretty much his 2020, his previous years without the touchdowns. 6 for 61, 5 for 43, 5 for 41. Boy, just thank God for Jacoby Brissett. Thank God.
Yeah.
He really did save a lot of people out there. What would you not like to see this team do for 2026?
I would not like to see them run it back with Kyler Murray. I would also prefer if they went in a different direction than Malik Willis. Just give me a pocket passer like Jacoby Brissett that can keep up the fantasy scam. Besides that, I don't really have any higher hopes for this team in 2026 other than being a fantasy scam. I think that's kind of the best case scenario. Just because it's not an offseason where you're going to be able to get a good quarterback, unfortunately.
Yeah, they have the 3rd pick in the draft, in a draft that people really only feel like there's one quarterback and we know where he's going. So, that's a chunky asset, that 3rd overall pick. So it'll be interesting to see where they shake out going in a new direction. But I do want to one more time thank the Arizona Cardinals for everything they gave us this year. Thank you, Michael Wilson. Shout out.
Jacoby Brissett.
Yes, thank you. All right, that will do it for this absolutely award-winning series that we've embarked on. Evan and I will be coming back to you guys for this entire offseason, so look forward to more shows with you. Evan, where can the people find you?
I just want to say real quick, happy Blue Friday to all my 12s out there. Go Hawks. Let's get a big win on Sunday. It's the last Blue Friday of the year. Let's get it, baby. You can find me on X at Evan Ringler FF. All my works at PlayerProfiler.com and here on this channel that you're listening to. And then go play on Fast Draft. We got Rabbit live right now. It's our full 15-round best ball contest. And we have Origins live, which is our 6-round rookie-only best ball contest. And the quicker we fill that, the quicker we can launch another one with an even bigger prize pool. So, go play in Origins.
Get over there. If you've been watching this show and you said, I want that guy's money in my pocket, and you're looking at me directly, I'm the mark. I'm the guy in drafts that you should be targeting. We're going to be having a lot of fun with it. So look forward to more shows with you guys. Enjoy Super Bowl this weekend. Savor up every last play, every last snap, because it's going to be a long off season, but we'll be doing the best we can to make it easy on you. So that's it for us, you guys. Cheers.